friends, welcome back to our channel. This is Feli and today I will be talking about repotting of plants, especially with foliage plants, succulents, and then some cacti. I have a few plants here and then I've been meaning to do a repotting, but I couldn't find a time to do it because I'm working full-time. I'm taking care of nearly 150 plants indoors. That's excluding the plants outdoors. And of course, I have wife duties. So, here in New Zealand, it is spring and it is the best time to repot plants. It is the time when plants are screaming, "Repot me," because I'm actively growing. Plants are actively growing spring, summer. So, when will you repot the plant? When you repot the plant, of course, aside that if you want to just transfer it to a nicer pot, you repot a plant when the roots are already going into the bottom of the pot. And some even are pushing the plants out of the pot. So, and also, if your plants are not actively growing, when they're supposed to be actively growing, so check, because probably the soil nutrient is already depleted. That's why they're not actively growing. And another thing is that if the above part, let's say, if the above part is like 3 times as large as your pot, of course, it's the time to repot. So what do we need to repot? We need the plants in front of me, and then of course the soil mix, the potting mix, I have it here, and then the pots, depending on your preference. So I have terracotta pots here and then plastic pots. And then, of course, especially if you're dealing with cacti, you need gloves. I have a thicker one for those like thicker thorns, but I don't normally use gloves because I don't want that. I don't have control, especially if I'm doing arrangements. I want it that I can have control, that I can feel the whole process of it. So it's just me, so it's weird. But yeah, so with pots, you need to do, let's say, a pot 1 to 2 inches larger. So let's say with this one, with my ficus ruby, I want to do like just slightly bigger part, just 1 to 2 inches bigger. Because if you use like pots that is too large than your current pot, of course, you will have more soil and then you will have the tendency to water more. You ended up killing the plant. One article says it's like killing it with kindness. So we don't want that in our plants. And also, repotting does not mean that we have to change pots. Like this case, I just want to repot. I just want to change the potting mix, but the size of the pot, it's still perfect in proportion to the plant, so I just want to stick with it. So especially for slow growing plants, you can use the same pot for a few years, but you just have to replenish the soil every 1 to 2 years depending on the plant. So fresh soil means fresh nutrients. That's the main idea in repotting. So what are the steps in repotting? In repotting, let's say this is dealing with soil. So you just try to press it together so that it's easier to remove it. So yeah, that's quite easy if you're dealing with plastic pots. But if you're dealing with, I don't have an example here. If you're dealing with something on terracotta parts or in ceramic pots, it's of course quite hard. So just be patient, especially if you're handling with cacti, because you want to remove it from the pot and you also want that want to avoid the cactus thorns. And then of course the next step is to loosen the soil. So I just tried to loosen this like what I'm doing now. So just gently loosen it, and they're usually good. And try not to cut the roots. Don't damage the root system. I mean, if it's really hard bound, the roots are really hard bound, then it's okay if you'll just cut the smaller hairs, the secondary hairs, but as much as possible, the primary roots, you don't want to damage them. With foliage plants, I tend to be very careful about it. So yeah, but with like succulents, I'd be honest, I'm quite brutal about this one. Just chuck it out and then that's it. It's quite easy. So I already have removed the old potting mix. And another one is this one. For this one, see, still same pots, you compress it, and then I don't like that. It's already so dry and I don't like the potting mix here. That's why I've actually just bought these plants. So see, I'm quite brutal with succulents. I mean, they survive as long as they have a soil to grow, and then they're not waterlogged, they'll be okay. So succulents are hardy, so they're easy to grow. So that's it. So I have this ficus ruby, and it's quite so dry. So what I will do is I'll soak it first in water. That way it will be easier for me to loosen the roots. So I'll just like submerge it in water just for a few minutes. Just for a few minutes so that it will loosen. I have another one here. The Tinike. This one is quite better. So this one, because this is one of my favorite plant. So I just want to be very careful. So just probably here in the bottom, if you have a hard time loosening it, start in the bottom. It will be like easier. Just lightly compress it, then it will become like loose. So that's it. I know nurseries, they have that plugs, and to be honest, sometimes I'm so cautious in removing the plugs, because it also means if I dig deeper, it also means that I'll be going into the root system, so the main root system, and I'm quite nervous about it. So I already have this one. I don't know if you can see it. These plugs are biodegradable. but of course it needs more time. So, and just aiding the growth process, I want my plant to kick in. So that's why I'm removing these plugs. Oh, next one is removing the old potting mix. In this case, because these ones are from the nurseries or the garden centers, so I actually don't have anything to remove. But if you're repotting like an old plant in your collection, of course, sometimes when you're dealing with bigger pots, I tend to just leave 1/3 of the soil below and then replenish the rest of the soil. But for like smaller pots, I tend to change the whole potting mix. It's just my opinion. So, and another one is adding the new potting mix. So, this one, I've loosened the roots. I've removed most of the potting mix, and then this one, I'm not changing with the size of pot because I want it here on this one, with this one. Oh, by the way, about for my foliage plants, especially if I'm dealing with indoor plants, I tend to just use plastic pots and then use cover pots. It is handy for me because if I can just water them and then they'll be okay. This will solve the problem with pots that doesn't have any drainage hole. I can't be bothered actually drilling holes into pots. I prefer to use this one and then a cover pot. So let's proceed. I mean, I know more. It's just easy, like planting. You chuck in the whole plant and then adding some soil. So I've changed the position of the camera so you can see me better. So this one, of course, you just have to chuck this in and then put some of your prepared potting mix. This is what I was talking about, that I want to fill the whole plant. So just press it down and then this is it. Another one for the ficus, I want the whole, like a bigger pot. So chuck it in again and then put the soil, So yeah, compress it. Done. So checking back with this ficus ruby, so I dip it in water and then now it's easier to remove. So start again at the bottom end and then just try to loosen it. I should have watered it actually, but yeah, we're already here, so let's just make use on what we have. So just do it like this. Yeah, just try to loosen it. Press, press, press. Now they're slightly loosened. So press, press, press until most are like loose. And I'll try to show you first the plug. See that? That's the plug that I was talking about. So yeah, I'll just try to remove them. See? Just try to remove them. Oops, I'm making a mess here. So this is like that whole thing without. So we're good to go. And then you repot it to a bigger pot, steam, chuck it in, and then add new potting mix. Succulents, yeah, they're just easy. So like this one. So I've got this one. Just clean up few the old leaves, chuck it in, and then of course add the soil. They're quite leggy because they've been sitting in our garage for a while now. I keep on saying I want to repot them, but yeah, time. It's quite hard to balance time, but yeah, for the love of plants, we're still here. So we're done. With my succulents, I don't want to put like cover pebble. If I know the name, then I'll label it. So this is ready. This one, I'll just use a smaller pot because they're just tiny. So yeah, that's it. This is quite tricky, so I have to wear gloves this time. Pink gloves. So just remove it, and then loosen it, loosen the soil. So here, so just put some, I don't know, I feel like putting fine pumice on top. I water after repotting for foliage plants, for indoor plants. But for, let's say, for my succulents and my cacti, I don't want to water them. I let them callus for a week because in case I've damaged their root system, any opening in their root system, they will suck in the water and they will have too much water, which they don't like. Oh, by the way, this is how I label my plants, so you put the label afterwards. So I'm just watering here. Again, water immediately for foliage plants, but not for succulent and cacti. Guys, I'm done with my repotting. So I've used bigger terracotta pots for most of my succulents and cacti. And the small ones, I just use this small plastic pots. So I don't want to put them like way too bigger pots. So that's it. Thank you for joining me in my repotting and hope to see you next time in my next video. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you very much.